Hello YouTube, and welcome to my vlog on the comic books which I have read this week. The first comic book which I read this week was Batman Beyond issue 1, but unfortunately I seem to have misplaced it, so I can't review it right now. All I am going to say is I thought it had some very interesting ideas and it was relatively well written, but I really miss Terry McGinnis, and I really struggle with the concept of Tim Drake starring in a Batman Beyond book, and I really hope they find a way to bring Terry back. I'm sorry, Tim Drake and Tim Drake fans everywhere. Now, Batman issue 41. This was a book which I found to be either very well or very poorly written. Certainly, it had its funny moments, which is surprising for a Snyder book, given how much of a fan I generally haven't been of this. The general thing, the funniest moment, I'm going to talk about the funny moment first, because I need to talk about the story in full, but there's just one moment which I think is absolutely hilarious, where they talk about how Julia Perry, as she's calling herself now, rather than Pennyworth, who's involved in this, has no involvement with the original Batman. At least that's what she tells Jerry Powers. And Jerry Powers just sort of believes her. But how on earth would Jerry Powers know? It's kind of like Julia there. No involvement with the previous Batman at all. But she was highly recommended by Lucius Fox, who clearly had nothing whatsoever to do with Batman either. It's almost like she just went, hey, I'm Julia, and it's okay, you don't need to do background checks on me or anything. I have nothing to do with Batman. But aside from that, I'm going to say, I'm really not sure if this Jerry Powers character is an idiot or evil genius, because I'm inclined to think she's an evil genius because she's the mother of Derek Powers, the supervillain Blight, and A, she clearly didn't do a background check on Julia properly, and B, even though it's made pretty clear that Jim Gordon is not the best choice for Batman, he's not the fastest, he's not the strongest, he's not the smartest, he's not so necessarily the most practical in terms of the situation, she keeps saying, but you're the right choice, and she's using the right words to make him want to be Batman. But at the same time, you've got to wonder, is she doing this because she wants him to be Batman because she actually thinks he's the right choice, or does she want him to be Batman because she doesn't think he's able to handle it, and because she wants to basically have someone to conquer so that she can demonstrate she has her own power. Either way, she's either an evil genius or an idiot. And until we know which, it's really hard to have an opinion on this book. So because of that, it's hard to give it a sort of star rating. But then the last scene kills this book. It kills it dead, because Bruce Wayne is revealed to still be alive 1 issue after they killed him. 1 issue. It took them 20-ish years to reveal to bring Barry Allen back to life after Wally West took over as the Flash, and Wally West was a fantastic Flash, and Wally West was a character we'd already known as Kid Flash, and he was great. Yet, Jim Gordon, who we've already known as an associated character with Batman, taking over the Batman mantle, I wanted to see where this goes, at least for a few more issues, maybe even for a few years. I just want to see how they're going to develop this, and I wanted to see what he was going to be like, what his style was going to be, what his attitude was going to be. We've never really been able to get to see much of Gordon out in the open being a cop, and now he's Batman. We really get to see a brand new side to this character, a side which I was really excited to see, potentially for a long period of time. But the very next issue, you brought Bruce Wayne back after so completely concluding his story arc. I am sorry, Scott Snyder, but that's too soon to do that. Way too soon. So I'm going to give this story 3 stars, but maybe 4 if Jerry Powers is actually manipulating things in the background. Okay, Batgirl issue 41 I thought was absolutely excellent. It was well drawn. It was drawn in the same kind of cartoonish style we've been seeing in previous Batgirl issues. I've got to be honest, I love this art style. It's this sort of cartoonish style which kind of over-exaggerates all the features of the face, so you can really see the emotion really well. It's sort of simplified but exaggerated at the same time, and it's genius. It's kind of like you might expect to see in a DC animated cartoon, or even in some sort of Disney animated cartoon. But it's so good at this artist, whose name I cannot remember, is really good at getting the emotions right, making it clear what a character is thinking. So much that you can often, I remember Batgirl Endgame, you could understand everything that was going on behind Batgirl's eyes, behind her head, and she didn't need to say a single word in that issue, and you understood all the emotions and everything that was going on. So this artist is cracking. Fantastic artist. Babs Tarr. You are brilliant, Babs Tarr. Anyway, the story's very interesting. It's got some very emotional moments between Gordon, as in Jim Gordon, and Barbara Gordon. He flat up admits to her that he's Batman, and she's going to admit that she's Batgirl, and then he's like, oh, by the way, I have to hunt Batgirl because she's a vigilante, and vigilantes need to be controlled and all that. So, or stopped, and we need to arrest them. So, there's this really interesting conflict which is going to be going on between father and daughter, and he even goes to arrest her at the end. I really want to see where this is going to go and how this leads, because I'm assuming that Gordon is eventually going to find out that Barbara is Batgirl. I think it's an inevitability. And how he'll react to that. Will he report it? Will he not? I'm really interested. Oh, by the way, back to Batman issue 41. There's one thing I forgot to mention this time around. I'm not so much a fan of the Beetle Batsuit, and I found it really frustrating when the guy who designs the suit in the issue shows all his other sketches, all of which look so much better than the one they went with. But with that said, I'm very glad that Gordon does have a regular Batsuit, which just looks so awesome with that yellow Bat logo on it. He just looks so insanely badass, because you look at that and think, it's really Batman. So, yeah, I've already reviewed that one. Oh, by the way, yeah, Batgirl 41, I give it a 5 out of 5. Highly recommend you read it. Okay, so, Batman Superman number 10. This is the UK edition. So it actually came out in America quite a while ago. So I apologise if you're an American watching this, a little confused by what I'm talking about. But this is a very well written issue. The first part is there's 4 stories in this, so I'm going to talk about each of them in turn. Although I'm probably not going to bother talking about the 4th story. There wasn't really much to talk about. Really, it didn't leave much of an impact on me. But story number 1 features Helena Wayne from Earth 2 visiting Bruce Wayne in the current continuity, basically telling who she is and who Power Girl is and how they've got to this world, and now Power Girl's completely lost control of her powers. There's all these interesting all these interesting parts about how Batman and Superman aren't really getting on. There's some very funny moments in this, actually. I get that it's not a comedy, but this scene where Huntress is telling Power Girl, what are you talking about? Superman won't hurt you. And then Superman throws a giant rock at her. It's just so freaking hilarious. Only complaint I have really about this issue is the art, which is so freaking awful. I mean, I'm not much of a fan of the penciling, but the colouring. The characters look like zombies. I mean, they look dead. There's no life in them. There's practically no emotion in their faces either. This is the kind of art style that might work in a Twilight comic book, but in a Batman-Superman book, I'm not so sure. And I'm really not so sure about the way the hair is drawn. It kind of looks like shards of liquid metal. You see there, it's really not right. And when we saw Huntress in the background in a sort of foggy panel, I initially thought it was some sort of slime monster with tentacles like Glurgle-Skletch. It took me quite a while to realise that was supposed to be Huntress. I'm not going to say I can do better, because I know I can't draw to save my life. But this is not very good either. With that said, I do think there are some very good ideas in this issue, particularly regarding how there's a character in it who Bruce and Helena have to go and see to investigate, and he's the parallel universe version of the guy who Power Girl was dating in their world. So, interesting idea there, and I do really want to know what happens next. The next story in this, I'm thoroughly not a fan of, because it completely ruined Wonder Woman for me as a character. I mean, there's two stories really going on here. But the one with Wonder Woman, which makes up half of this, is flat up awful. She acts in a way that's very non-heroic and basically ensures that countless people lose their lives. I mean, sure, they're not exactly nice people, and it could be argued because of these people's actions that they deserve to die, but she pretty well makes sure that they're killed, and you see all these gunshots afterwards, and she basically acts in a really non-heroic fashion. So, I'm not a fan of this, because superheroes are supposed to be giving you an ideal to strive towards, particularly characters like Wonder Woman. And this was not that. This was nothing like that. And I'm very disappointed in you, Wonder Woman. So, third story, and the last one I'm really going to talk about. I'm not even going to mention much of it. It's a very good story, very exciting, lots of action, lots of very inaccurate geology. This is coming from a geologist. Lots of really fantastic artwork with Superman fighting Wraith, who looks suspiciously like Mongol, but isn't Mongol, he's Wraith. But the thing I don't so much like about this issue is that it came out after Justice League Trinity number 8. And in Justice League Trinity number 8, Lex Luthor attempts to join the Justice League, and he really makes himself out to be very much a hero-type character, although still a very selfish character, undeniably. But in this, where he's really trying to be a hero and trying to impress them all, it seems very weird that he would then flat out try to kill Superman in this issue. So, maybe this is set before this, but they were released in the wrong order in the UK. But either way, but if that isn't the case, then I'd rate this much higher. If that is the case, I'm not sure. But generally, overall, mixed feelings on this. I think I'd give it about 3.5 stars. Okay, so Convergence number 8, it sucked. Starfire number 1. This was the book I was most interested in looking at this week, because I really wanted to see where they were going to go with the character, because this is an entirely new take on Starfire. You can kind of see from the artwork she's kind of loosely inspired here by the version that appeared in Teen Titans, the animated series. And the artwork is very good. The cover is kind of misleading, I think, because it kind of gives you the idea that it's mostly going to be about people ogling her, being jealous of her, and or feeling inadequate about their bodies because she's around. And that has nothing to do with anything that happens in this book, with the exception of one scene where some guys basically fight over her, and then she has to stop the fight by shooting the table with a firebolt. Or a starbolt, sorry. But other than that, this isn't really anything like that at all. It's basically about this version, this presumably new version of Starfire, who's just arrived on Earth and has decided to make this island off California her home. And it's really generally very well written. We get to know all these different characters, we get to know their histories, we get to know who they are as people, how they became the way they are. We get to know so much about these characters, and they're generally really likeable characters. Usually in so many of these more recent books, they've been trying to make every character so dark, and they've just ended up making everyone really unlikable. Here, all of the characters generally are human, but they're likable too. And I like this, and I really like some of the relationships going on with some of the characters. A lot of the chemistry is a bit weird. I like the way people are trying to cheer each other up, but I do get the sense that the depressed police sheriff's brother, who's a fisherman, is probably going to end up with Starfire. Just saying, I think that's what they're headed for. All in all, there were some very funny moments, aside from maybe this naked scene, which is even covered up, so it doesn't matter. Aside from that, I think this is generally a very kid-friendly issue, and even that's just done for a comedic purpose, because there's a lot in this story about sort of cultural differences between what she's used to on Tamaran and what she's now gotten into on Earth. So it's really very interesting because it's kind of a lot of these jokes which we've seen before on sitcoms with aliens in, but this is taking it into a comic book form and actually making it work. It's so rare that you see a comedic comic book that actually works, but it's not solely a comedy, it's also a character drama. And as I said, we get to know these characters, we get to like these characters. There's some really funny scenes regarding the trailer she's in, and this sort of naive old woman thinks that this guy was a Jamaican and thinks that the picture of a marijuana leaf on the trailer was the national flower of Jamaica. And it's just so funny, really. But at the same time, there is an overarching problem in the form of this hurricane that's coming, and the chaos that we know it's going to cause, and we see it causing in the last few pages. But then something very odd happens in the very last page, and I'm not entirely sure what it is, because, I don't know, something happens that isn't thunder. The room seems to end up on its side, although it might not be. It might be a tree. And then she gets out the door and shouts, "Zhao!" I've genuinely got no idea what Zhao is. Is it a word in Tamaranian? Is it a character? Something's happened here, and it doesn't really make much sense. The entire arc, this whole sequence, is really hard to tell what's going on. But once we forget about that one sequence, the entire book is very, very good. And I'm a huge fan of this book. It's a little girly, I'd admit, but I'm still very intrigued to see where it was going. It was very well written, it was very well drawn, it had some very interesting characters and some very interesting ideas. 5 stars again. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this today's vlog, and if you disagree with me, please feel free to leave your comments below. If you agree with me, please feel free to leave your comments below. Feel free to like, subscribe, etc. So, thanks guys. I will be back in probably a few days when I will have my new microphone. Actually, that's a lie. I will have my old microphone, but I will have it connected properly because I am getting it fixed at the moment. That's a lie. I'm getting an adapter so that I can connect it to my new laptop. And it's taking ages to arrive. But it will be here tomorrow, probably. Like, subscribe, please. It doesn't matter if you don't want to. Or if you don't have a YouTube account, so you can't. Bye.